Hi friends, I'm Bryn and this is Friends Who Crime.
Friends Who Crime.
I am so happy to be back today. Last week I couldn't record an episode because I had the frickin' flu. It was awful and I am super grateful to be healthy again, and thank you for your patience and your understanding with that, with not having a new episode this week. But we are back on schedule. A few housekeeping things. I always say follow us on streaming services, turn on auto downloads because it really helps the show. Follow us on Instagram at Friends Who Crime. I post little snippets and cool little pictures to go along with each case. We're growing really quickly. This is honestly a dream. I ordered these little drop cards to hand out with a QR code. So if you want some to hand out to people, I will literally mail them to you. And also because the podcast is starting to grow a little bit, I'm going to dip my toe into using ads. It won't be this week, but it'll start next week. So just a heads up on that. You can always skip through them with the little skippy button on Spotify. This also means I'll be starting a subscription model soon where you can listen without ads if you subscribe, and you can get the episodes early and stuff like that. So I'm in the process of figuring that out. I will keep you guys updated. Lastly, I want to give a shout out to Neiko, who helps me edit the podcast. He's been a huge help, an enormous help, and I really can't thank him enough. He'll actually be next week's guest, so you guys will get to meet him. It'll be really cute and very, full circle. With that, let me introduce my guest today. He is the one and only Reid.
Yay.
Welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here.
So tell us, Reid, if you would, who are you? How do you know me? And what's your relationship with true crime?
So I joined the long list of people who came before me who know Bryn through music. Shocker. I've had the privilege of singing in an a cappella group with Bryn. So that's how I know Bryn. True crime. I'm a noob. So my introduction was the HBO special on the Golden State Killer.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And it gave me the heebies. I was scared after watching the first few episodes because they started off really scary and then they kind of got more into Michelle McNamara. I think I said that, McNamara. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got more into her life, about how she was writing it and investigating. But what gave me the heebies was waking up to the thought of a flashlight being shown in my face.
Terrifying.
Yep. So that was my introduction. I think I dove in rather than tiptoeing.
Yeah, but, you truly cannonballed.
Yes. I typically cannonball my way through life, so.
That's true. I would confirm that about you. Well, you're in for a doozy of a case today.
Good.
We're celebrating St. Patrick's Day, even though this will be coming out the day after St. Patrick's Day.
So, not wearing green.
Not right now.
But we will be when it airs.
We will be. So time for my newer segment. It's called Brinterrogation. I started it last week. It's basically just me telling a story of something that happened to me in my life recently, just because I like to talk about myself.
Right.
So here we are. South by Southwest is this week, and I have 2 shows in one day this weekend. And I've never actually done that before, 2 shows in one night, since like college when I was in choirs and doing multiple concerts a day there. So I'm really excited. A little nervous.
I love a Bryn show. I'm shamelessly plugging myself as going to, or have been to, multiple of Bryn shows. So if you're listening, go.
Thanks.
Although I think this airs after the show.
This will be airing after, but
she did great.
I have another show in Austin on May 17th. It'll be my birthday weekend show. So that will be fun.
So we all need to go.
Yeah, essentially. It's required. If you're on the podcast, that's the promise.
If you download it, that's basically your RSVP. Got it.
Okay, that's my interrogation today. Let's get into it.
I'm ready.
Like I said, we'll be visiting Ireland today.
I brought my passport.
Great. Perfect. You're on board. This is the GUBU murder case.
GUBU.
GUBU. It's an acronym. GUBU.
GUBU.
Sounds ridiculous.
It's very hard to take seriously.
And I honestly, that's what I've been calling it. They might not actually call it that in Ireland. They might say GUBU. I don't know. But either way, I like GUBU.
GUBU it is.
It stands for grotesque, unbelievable, bizarre, unprecedented.
Hey.
The term was coined by a politician who was talking about this case afterwards. And now it's still used in the context of Irish politics. Like anytime a scandal happens or like a particularly bad murder happens, they still use GUBU as the term. And this case is where it came from. We start in Ireland in the 1980s. Have you ever been to Ireland, Reid?
No, and I was hoping that I would go this year, but I'm not going to. But I've been to the UK, so close enough.
Okay. Ireland is my favorite place I've ever visited.
Really?
Yeah, there's a place, it's like a little coastal seaside town. It's spelled Howth, but it's pronounced like Hote, I think. And it's like, I've never been to a more beautiful place. Like you just like walk down this little street and all of a sudden it opens up to the ocean. And like we were there at sunset, so it was all pretty colors, and there's a lighthouse. It's just like flawless.
I like how we're setting the scene for GUBU with a nice scenic ocean view.
Yes.
We can collect ourselves before we get into the gruesome details.
It's you have to. You gotta lighten it up a little bit. Ireland has these beautiful cliffs, busy cities, but these really cute coastal small towns too. In the 1980s, Ireland was dealing with a lot of social and political turmoil. Sounds familiar.
Relatable much?
There was economic decline, volatile politics, a big divide on social issues. A lot of that political turmoil was caused by an unthinkable event. The GUBU murders. The GUBU murders. These murders would carry the same weight in Ireland as, like, Dahmer and Ted Bundy do in the United
so this is a big
States.
deal.
It's a big deal. It was huge.
Okay.
And like the murderer here is like a household name in Ireland.
Really?
Yeah.
As a result of this or
Yes.
before? Okay. So
As
it
a
wasn't
result
like
of
a famous family name beforehand. This is what the catalyst that made them a family name.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
I think.
We'll talk a little bit about that. Let me introduce you to our main character today, Malcolm MacArthur. Malcolm Edward MacArthur was born on April 17th, 1945.
Oh, that's a bad year.
Is it?
World War II.
Oh. Huh. I didn't even think about that. Well, so he was born April 17th, 1945. He grew up as an only child in, forgive me for these Irish names, in County Meath in East Ireland.
Okay.
His family was wealthy. They had a 180-acre farm, a giant house, a housekeeper, a gardener, a governess, which is like a nanny, essentially.
It feels a little bit more impactful. Not that nannies aren't impactful. I just mean like notoriety.
Yes.
Is the...
Sounds very like uppity.
Yes.
A governess. Mm-hmm. As an adult, Malcolm was described as an eccentric, cravat-wearing, wavy-haired, sophisticated man, well known around Dublin as a wealthy socialite and a drifter. When he was in his 20s, so pretty young, his father passed away, leaving Malcolm the family fortune. He was an only child, so he got the farm, he got the house, he got the gardener and the governess.
It's sad to see other people living my dream.
Right.
Not that the parent part, I want my parents to stay here, but the inheritance.
Yes. So he got the entire family fortune and he sold the farm because he didn't want to deal with it. Mm-hmm. So that gave him £70,000 in his pocket, which today is the equivalent of $1.2 million.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's nuts.
In his 20s. Like, instant millionaire. Having this amount of money meant he didn't need a job. So he didn't work.
I'm not understanding how this is a bad case right now.
Honestly, like, I don't blame him. That's the dream.
That's it. We're done. Pack it up.
And that would, like, 1.2 million would take you so far.
Yeah.
Like, you could stretch that for a really long time. He had a partner, Brenda Little, and they had one child together. In early 1982, when Malcolm was in his late 30s, the family moved to Spain. Malcolm had lived a very lavish lifestyle with that $1.2 million. Mm-hmm. So when they moved to Spain, his money starts to run out. He has spent that much money in somewhere between 8 and 10 years.
He had fun.
Yes. But still, like, it took him a long time to get through it, but now he's never worked. He's out of money. And he has, like, a family to support. So shortly after moving, his money starts to run out, as money often does. He moved back to Dublin alone, leaving Brenda and their child in Spain. He was broke and terrified at the thought of working for a living.
Period.
So instead of finding a job like a normal person, Malcolm decided to fund his lifestyle in an unconventional way, to say the least.
Crime.
He had a plan, sort of. You'll see what I mean. At the time, the Irish Republican Army, the IRA, was doing a bunch of bank heists to fund their efforts to unite Ireland and eradicate British control.
Okay.
These robberies gave them a total of £2.5 million, which would be over £10.5 million today. So bank heists gave them a lot of money.
Uh-huh.
Malcolm saw the profit that the IRA was making on these heists and thought, I could probably do that. And I could just blame it on the IRA. They'll never know. What a fantastic idea.
I see no holes.
What a plan. His logical first step to this plan was, of course, to buy a gun. Oh boy.
As one does.
As one does. Sort of. Couldn't be me. He responded to an ad, and I assume it was in the newspaper because this is 1982. This ad was from a farmer, Donald Dunn, selling a shotgun in Edinburgh.
Donald Dunn sounds like Donald Duck. So how old is he here? Because you said he was born in 45.
Yes.
So he would be...
He's in
30s?
His late 30s.
Yeah.
I believe he's 39.
Okay.
So, sees the ad from the farmer selling a shotgun in Edinburgh, which is about an hour west of Dublin. So it's not super far from where he is. But this man's didn't have transportation to get there. So, what does this man's choose to do? He decides to steal a damn car. And this is where everything goes very, very wrong. A dangerous man with dangerous intentions, motivated by money, is not a great combination. Let's jump over to a different scene for just a moment. We'll circle back around.
So pause scene, he's in his car doing who knows what. New scene.
He has not yet stolen a car.
It's in his mind.
It's in his head. And he's in Dublin, right?
Okay.
That's where we're going to leave him for just a moment.
In scene. Got it.
In Phoenix Park in Dublin, there's a girl named Reid Gargan. She's a 27-year-old nurse, and she's sunbathing on her day off from work, right? Again, the dream. Yeah. Seems idyllic. She's taking in the sun. Very Sheryl Crow's Soak Up the Sun.
Classic.
And out of nowhere, she's approached by a man brandishing a gun. He forced her into the backseat of her car and starts bludgeoning her with a hammer.
What?
And not just like a normal people hammer. It was a lump hammer, so it's one of the big ones.
Ouch.
Yeah. So he starts bludgeoning her with a lump hammer. Which is awful and terrifying, and it came out of nowhere. She's in the backseat of her car. He's hitting her with this hammer. There's blood going all over the place. I mean, it looks like a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
So what in the world happened? Was this random? Did this person know her? Was she just in the wrong place at the wrong time?
She just wanted to catch some rays. Not a hammer.
Not a hammer.
just a hot tan.
Do you have a guess for who this man might be?
Well, there's only one man that's been introduced so far.
You're right. It is indeed our main character, Malcolm MacArthur, coming in hot.
It wasn't the seller of the gun, Donald Dune. That was his name, right?
No, it was not him. Not him. But yeah, he's coming in hot to steal Brady's car. The gun he had was fake, by the way. Decoy gun.
So has he sold a fake one, or did he buy a fake one?
I don't know if he bought it specifically for this or if he already had it, but he has a fake gun.
Okay.
He hasn't been able to get a real gun yet.
Okay.
I don't think he expected the adrenaline and ensuing confusion because he left Brady's body in the back seat and just sped away.
With like blood splattered on the windows and everything. Got it.
And like her bleeding out in the back seat.
Mm.
I'm not sure what he thought was going to happen next, but he certainly didn't think that a passing ambulance would see Brady's bloody and injured body and the blood on the windows and, like, stop the car. But that is what happened. The EMTs also mistook Malcolm for a doctor because Brady had a hospital sticker because she's a nurse. So they thought he was a doctor. The ambulance escorted Malcolm and Brady to St. James's Hospital, which is the same hospital that Brady worked in. But as soon as the ambulance pulled into the hospital gates, Malcolm turns the car around and speeds away.
I was wondering how he was going to get away from that.
He didn't even, like, drop Brady off to get her help. He just turned around, sped away, with her still in the backseat. And he abandoned the car on a not-so-busy street with Brady still in the backseat. When the car was finally found later, Brady was unconscious, but still alive.
Okay, I was going to ask.
Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, Brady Garden died 4 days later from severe head injuries. This asshole murdered her for literally no reason. What did he get out of that? He didn't get the car. He abandoned it. He didn't have a gun. Those were the two things he needed.
So it was a pointless venture.
Right. And he just killed her for no reason. Brady could have helped so many people as a nurse, and he took that away from her. And he's not even done.
He took it away from all of her patients she never had, too.
Right. Right. Like, she was probably a fantastic nurse. And she's just, like, chilling on her day off.
Lesson learned, don't go tanning. Skin cancer.
Don't go to Phoenix Park in Ireland.
That too.
Bring pepper spray. So after he's ditched the car, Malcolm spent that night under a local bridge. He didn't have money for a hotel. He woke up the next morning and took a bus out to Edenderry to meet Donald Dunn, the farmer who was selling a shotgun. They met at a post office, and then they drove to a bog where Malcolm could test out the gun before he buys it. Donald wanted 1,100 pounds for it, and obviously Malcolm didn't have that money.
Oh no, what's he about to do?
They start, right? They start haggling, they start kind of arguing, and Malcolm manages to take the gun and shot Donald in the head, killing him instantly.
So our body count is like two. Back to back.
Correct. Like, with very little time in between. He attempted to hide Donald's body, but he didn't do a very good job. Like, he just, like, tossed some leaves and, like, put it in an inconspicuous place. So,
he's not calculated. Like, with the car, with her body.
I think he had a plan, and it completely unraveled immediately.
Yeah.
So after he kills Donald, tries to hide his body, he steals his truck, his Ford truck, and flees the scene. Donald's body would lay there for several hours before a child discovered it. And Donald was only 27, same as Brady.
Younger than me.
Younger than me. Again, Just another life that Malcolm senselessly cut short. Both murders could have just been avoided if he got a fucking job. like all of us. The media latched onto these murders immediately. They were front page stories. The two victims were young. They were a nurse and a farmer. There seemed to be no real motive for the deaths. People were starting to wonder if those two crimes were connected. They didn't know.
Sure.
And they were afraid because the murderer was still out there walking around with a gun in a stolen car. The police, which were called the Gardai, were baffled by these murders. They launched a nationwide manhunt for the killer, questioning anyone who could have seen something. They managed to gather a description of the killer from a few eyewitnesses who were at Phoenix Park. A gardener across the street had actually confronted Malcolm before he drove away. Like, he actually walked up to the car and was, like, yelling at him, and Malcolm was trying to cover Brady's body with, like, newspapers and stuff. But then he brings out his fake gun, so this gardener goes away.
It's hard to mentally separate today versus 1980 because in my head I'm like, oh, why didn't somebody call the cops or this? It's not that simple. No one has cell phones, so they're not like filming every little thing that's happening.
Right.
So thinking of trying to pull something off like this today, it feels like would be virtually impossible with all cell phones and technology and how quick people are there ready to film any minor inconvenience that happens in public.
Literally. Yeah. He would never, ever get away with this today.
Mm-mm.
Ever.
Well, he didn't. Maybe.
You'll see. So this gardener, he says, because he saw into the car, right? He says there was blood everywhere, like someone had thrown a bucket of tomatoes all around her head and face. It was that bad. The Gardai were starting to connect the dots between the two murders. They were undoubtedly connected. The descriptions of the assailants at both crime scenes matched, as well as a car being stolen at both crime scenes. They found fingerprints on a newspaper Malcolm had purchased and left behind in the bog with Donal, where he killed Donal. And those fingerprints matched fingerprints that were left on a shovel at Phoenix Park.
So,
but they still don't know whose fingerprints they are. A few days later, they located the stolen Ford truck in the parking lot of a bank in Dublin, which I think is a weird place to leave it.
Is it because he has a fascination with money? I don't think that's a connection, but it just seems to fit, and he wants, to pull off a crime like the IRA was doing.
Yeah, you're right. It totally could be. Totally could be very, anyway.
Intentional, but...
Yeah, intentional. Having no suspects, the police announced a substantial cash reward for any tips from the public.
Is he going to turn himself in for tips? Smile.
Not exactly. While the police were investigating, Malcolm was finally at the last step of his, air quotes, plan. After careful consideration, he chose to rob Harry Bailing, a former U.S. diplomat. Malcolm traveled to Bailing's home in a wealthy neighborhood of Dublin. He charmed his way into the home, telling Bailing he had come to a house party there recently and wanted to take a picture of the beautiful bay from the view of his window. Once he got inside, he pulled out the same shotgun he had used to kill Donal and pointed it right at Bailing, demanding 1,000 pounds. He held Bailing captive for several hours, but when Bailing finally agreed that he would pay Malcolm, he said, "Let me go grab my checkbook." And then he friggin' ran. He was able to get away. When Malcolm realized his hostage had escaped, he knew it would only be a matter of time before the Gardai were on his tail. He fled by hitchhiking, that's important, hitchhiking, to his old friend's apartment nearby. This friend was named Patrick Connolly. Connolly was not only Malcolm's friend, he was also Ireland's current Attorney General.
Oh, Lord.
The Irish Attorney General, if you don't know, I did not, he's the most senior level legal official.
So he's a
Wow.
big cheese.
Yeah. So he's not technically like a part of the government, but he attends government meetings. He's part of the cabinet, things like that. He's essentially the chief legal advisor. He gives them legal advice. And Malcolm was seeking refuge at this guy's apartment, and he told Connolly that he had just returned home from Switzerland and needed somewhere to stay. So Connolly is not aware of his crimes at all. Knowing nothing of Malcolm's crimes, Connolly let him stay in his guest room for a few days. While he hid in the apartment, he had taxis deliver bottles of sparkling water, newspapers, a hacksaw, and it was all charged to Connolly's account because he's a dickwad.
Yeah.
Malcolm is. During his stay, he made a really bizarre move by calling the gardai to say that the murder of Donal was a prank gone horribly wrong.
Oh.
A lie. Liza Minnelli lies.
I'm interested to hear what the prank was. This feels like a panic reaction.
Yes. And when they asked for his name, he said Malcolm MacArthur.
Oh, Lord.
Mm-hmm. My first thought was like,
that's guilty.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Like, I'm really glad that he was dumb enough to do that, but like, rookie mistake.
He had no practical life skills. He inherited a lot of money. He didn't work. You know, at work, don't listen, boss. People, when they're junior in their career, tell white lies that your boss knows. For example, they're like, hey, have you started this yet? And you go, yeah, of course I did. No, you didn't. But they can see that you didn't, and they already knew the answer before they asked. You learn those things as you make those mistakes, not to make those lies anymore and just to say it. He's a clear case of no practical skills.
Truly. As gardai gathered a better description of the unknown suspect, they were able to make a sketch of his face. This led to an important clue. Remember how I said how he hitchhiked to the Attorney General's apartment was important? The man who drove Malcolm to
recognized
the
him.
apartment was like, I know that guy from the sketch. And he came forward and he got to tell the police exactly where he dropped Malcolm off. So now they have a general area, and they start to realize, oh, our Attorney General lives in that building. Detectives Tony Hickey and Kevin Tunney drove out to the apartment, eager to at least get more leads from Connolly, right? They went door to door around the building, describing the man that they were looking for. One neighbor said that description sounded an awful lot like Connolly's nephew who was staying with him. Nephew?
Yeah, where did that come from?
You're telling me. Their hair stood on end. They were shocked, and you can imagine realizing, like, someone very politically important in our country.
An influential person. Yeah. Like, mixed up in a crime.
And they realized we're about to raid the Attorney General's apartment. The raid took place the next day, where 12 armed gardai arrived at the apartment, much to Connolly's surprise. They swiftly entered the home and arrested Malcolm MacArthur. They found the shotgun in the guest room. They found the hacksaws, which they think he was going to use to, like, cut off the shotgun to make it, like, a shorter weapon, which was not allowed. So this was confirmation that they had their man. MacArthur was taken into custody on murder and car theft charges, among other things. Connolly was completely unaware of MacArthur's criminal activities, and he was actually getting ready to go on a vacation to America. That news about the double murder had been unknowingly sheltered by the government's top legal advisor, left the entire nation in disbelief and outrage, right?
Yeah.
Like, if we were to find out our Secretary of State was harboring a murderer,
yeah,
we
like
would be
Ted Bundy. Like, what are you doing?
Exactly. And it would cause a lot of distrust in the government, right? So that's what's happening right now.
This is a big deal.
In an already politically
tumultuous environment.
like government's changing every few years kind of thing. Like every year or 2 years, they had a new government. So not
I bet
going
Connolly
well.
was mad. Can you imagine? Like, even like taking your government role out of this, if your friend did this to you and showed up at your house, I was like, I need a place to stay, and you find out by Reid that
Honestly, like you just come
ugh.
home and you're like, what's going on? After his arrest, MacArthur was charged with the murder of Bridie Gargan. Instead of going through a full trial, MacArthur pleaded guilty to her murder, which landed him a life sentence. Deserves it. This quick plea meant many details of the case stayed hidden, leaving the public with lots of unanswered questions, unease, and he actually was not tried for the murder of Donal.
I guess, is there a reason to, if you already have a life sentence, to do it again?
I think just justice and closure and citizens seeing that people get punished for the things that they do.
Right.
In my opinion, that's just speculation.
I think I'm aligning with our Department of Government Efficiency in the don't give me that. In the aspect that one's plenty. You know, it's already done. Let's be efficient with it, right?
Yeah.
No, but yes, I want to know, like, what else happened? Why did you do it? What are the dirty details we're not getting? Like, give me Rita Skeeter. Get to the bottom of this.
Political fallout was immediate and intense. Patrick Connolly, even though he had no idea about his friend's crimes, faced huge public and political pressure. He resigned from his post as Attorney General.
That's such a shame, you know? Like, I don't know anything about this man or his politics, so I don't know if that's actually a shame. But that feels so sad, having to put aside your whole career because of something that you didn't have a hand in.
Yeah, because an asshole decided to use you.
But I feel like that's the only logical thing to do in that role.
Right. He resigned from his position as Attorney General on August 16th, 1982, just days after MacArthur was arrested in his own home, in Connolly's home.
Yes.
Prime Minister, which they call, where's the pronunciation? Tausha. I'm just going to call it the Prime Minister, though. Same thing. His name was Charles Howie. He described the situation as a bizarre happening, an unprecedented situation, a grotesque situation, and almost unbelievable mischance.
GUBU!
These words were soon shortened to GUBU. Coined by a journalist, actually. His name was Connor Cruz O'Brien. And it's been around it's been in the jargon for political scandals in Ireland ever since.
I think I want to start using GUBU. Regular vernacular.
Yeah.
Is that the word vernacular? I think so.
Yeah.
I'm a math person. I'm not an English person at all.
Yes, GUBU. It reminds me of, which totally different, but it reminds me of charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent from Drag Race. It's GUBU. The term GUBU has stuck around in political Irish conversations, symbolizing events marked by shock, disbelief, political intrigue. The MacArthur case exposed big weaknesses in the Irish political system and showed how personal connections could escalate into national crises. Even decades later, the case is still referenced in discussions about political accountability and media sensationalism in Ireland. The arrest and trial of Malcolm MacArthur are a reminder of how an individual and their actions can ripple through society, leaving really lasting impressions on the national consciousness and political landscapes. We all know all about that. The GUBU affair serves as a case study in the unexpected consequences of personal relationships intersecting with public office, and its legacy continues in Irish political commentary.
Like, what's the solution? You know, not having personal relationships?
That's a great question. I think maybe not trusting people that you don't know as well as you should.
Yeah. Not granting asylum to somebody who just shows up on your doorstep. Maybe asking a few questions like, why me?
Right.
Like, why?
Right. Like, why do you have that gun, sir? Why are you getting things delivered to the apartment?
Is that a hacksaw I saw?
Like, the fuck? Like if you door dashed a hacksaw?
Yeah, and I'm gonna get priority on my hacksaw too. Spend the $3.99 for it.
Get the $10 a month membership so you don't have to pay service fees.
Absolutely.
So you were asking, why? What was the motivation behind it, right? Yeah, so his main motivation was to get money because he was running out. And his end goal was to rob Bailing and then just like go on with his life.
He went on too many side quests.
Yes. And like I said, I think he had a plan in his head, but as soon as that gardener came over to him in the park and was like, what is going on? And like saw everything happen, it was just like very much in public, And then this ambulance stops him. I think he just got so far off the rails that he didn't know how to get back on.
Not that I'm a criminal mastermind by any means, but I feel like there's better non-violent ways to steal a car.
Also true.
That would have kept him out of the limelight. But I guess when you're backed into a corner, you don't know what you're going to do. And this is a testament to he was in a very bad situation and didn't know what to do and was trying to claw his way out, and he made all the wrong decisions.
Yep. And I think too, there's probably some mental illness going on in there that.
How was that looked at in those days?
In the 80s? I mean, you can guess. It wasn't taken very seriously.
Right.
Things were
a lot of undiagnosed mental illness.
Right. They were like, you might be sad.
Yeah. That's it.
Like, you need some electroshock therapy? That'll work.
Yeah, go rub some dirt in it. You'll feel better in no time.
When MacArthur went to jail, he stayed silent for a very long time, like decades. And he, like, within the last decade, actually got out on parole.
So much for a life sentence. They should have done the second trial then.
Right. And people have all sorts of conspiracy theories about why he is out now, just like walking around like a normal person. And people like.
He is 80 now? Yeah, if he was born 45, he'd be 80 this year.
He's an old guy now.
See, told you, math guy.
Yeah.
He's an old guy. Yeah, what business does he have roaming the streets at this point?
People see him all the time. There are a bunch of articles online that they're like, oh, I saw Malcolm MacArthur on the street today walking into the market.
And what was our friend's name? Birdie? Her family is probably outraged at this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And Donald's family, too, actually.
Oh, right. I forgot about it.
Even though he was never charged for that murder. Like, he did it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, we know. And when he got out on parole, when Malcolm got out, he did give a few interviews. And in those interviews, he was very he wasn't very remorseful. Like, he was like, oh, other than those crimes, I'm a really awesome dude. Like,
spent some time in Spain for a while.
Right? He's like, I'm funny, I'm charming.
I had wavy hair.
Never make mistakes. Yeah. Like, very charismatic. I'm very morally sound. Like, just saying all these things, like, textbook narcissist at the very least.
That's what it sounds like.
At least the tendencies. And, yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Has he confessed to any of the other, crimes that he did, or is he like avoidant of the topic now that he's out?
The way he talks about it is pretty candid, but very much like those two murders were the only mistakes I've ever made in my life. So he has admitted to it. He pleaded guilty to Bridie's murder.
Bridie, not Birdie. Got it, Bridie.
Yeah, close enough. So like he admits willingly that like he killed these two people, but he doesn't talk about it a lot. Does that make sense?
I can understand not talking about it a lot. That would be kind of concerning if you see an old 80-year-old man walking down the street talking about prior murders he's committed.
Yeah, maybe not a good look.
No.
You can see how this case like would turn everything upside down in the government.
I'm wondering what Connolly did after the fact. So after he resigned, what did he do? Work-wise, like what did that look like?
He stayed in Dublin, but I think he was mostly retired at that point. Like he was never going to be in politics again.
Right.
So he just lived off the money he had. I mean, he had a good amount of money. He had a good salary when he was the legal advisor for the entire country.
We talked about why. I don't agree with his why. It seems silly, but yes. I guess that's to be expected in one of these, right?
Right.
We talked about his why. What happened to his family in Spain, I wonder? So when he left them, was this like we're separated as a couple, or were they together and he was just going to try to get money to return?
Yeah, the latter. Second one.
Yeah. So this was like shocking to her, probably, when she saw everything, and it's like, oh my God.
And I think his behavior was probably growing more and more alarming and desperate as he ran out of money.
Yeah.
You know, there are signs. But
all this would have been fine if he would have just gotten a job.
Gotten a fucking job. That's my thing. I'm like, just work for a living.
Just do something.
Ugh.
You can stop the bleeding some until you figure out like a long-term plan. It sounded like he wanted to do big, meaning like he wanted to get a lot of money so he was able to be in the exact same situation he was in before. He had no intention of going to work at a restaurant, so to speak, to get a little bit of money. He wanted a lot of money.
Yeah. My thinking is like he was well known and like he was well known for having money. He probably could have gotten into politics. And I'm glad he didn't.
That's the only prerequisite in the United States is to have money.
Obviously. Good God.
All he needs now is a few government contracts and he's good to go.
That's the case of the GUBU murders.
I am changed. As Glenda and Alphaba have said, I am changed for good.
Who can say if I've been changed for the better?
See, and you're green. See, it fits. It ties St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, St. Patrick's Day. Yeah, this was a fun episode. This was a little wacky. I like it.
Yeah, we had fun.
Yeah,
it was good. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for being here. Thanks for taking a night out of your very busy life to come hang out with me and talk about murder.
You know, I want to talk about murder more.
Great. Anytime. Anytime. I've got 3 books ready to go.
And I have the podcast downloaded, so
thank God.
I'll be able to tune in every week.
Thank you.
It's like everyone out there should.
Thank you. That's so nice. Well, that's our episode this week. I'll be posting some stuff on Instagram. Go give us a follow. Stay tuned for next week's episode. It's going to be a little different. It's going to be a little ghosty.
Ghosty?
Instead of crimey.
Oh, spooky.
Yeah. Yes. I just felt like it was time.
Yeah.
So come back next week. Here's some ghosty ghost stories. And until then, remember, friends don't let friends commit crimes. Bye!